Okay, we just got through talking about verbs, and now we're going to take a look at adverbs. Now, adverbs can modify adjectives, adverbs, and verbs, and they answer the questions how, when, or where. Most adverbs are formed by adding ly to adjectives. Like if I had the word careful as an adjective, I would add ly for carefully as an adverb. Usual would become usually, and near would come nearly. Okay, so let's take a look at these examples. James plays skillfully. Now, how does he play? Skillfully. So you've got the adverb modifying the verb plays. James plays outside. Where? Outside. Or where does he play? Outside. James plays often. When or to what extent does he play? Often. So make sure that you recognize the questions to ask yourself when you're looking for your adverbs within sentences. Now, when used to modify a verb, an adverb may appear before the verb, after the verb, at the beginning of the sentence, or at the end of the sentence. So you have to go verb hunting. So here are some examples. We've got James later played with the band. So you've got later as your adverb. It tells when he played, but it's coming before the verb. It can come after the verb. He played later. It can come at the beginning of the sentence. Later, James played with the band. And then you've got at the end of the sentence, James played with the band later. So you have to go verb hunting when you recognize that an adverb is modifying a verb. Now, adverbs can be used to modify adjectives and adverbs as well. So we're going to take a look at sentences, and I want you to notice how the adverb modifies the adjective and adverb here. So adverbs that modify adjectives and other adverbs almost always appear directly before the word they modify. So they're always next door neighbors. So we've got an example. Jim Henson created a group of very unusual puppets. So I have puppets is being described by the adjective unusual, like what kind of puppets, unusual puppets. But to what extent were they unusual? Very. Or how unusual? Very unusual. So we've got an adverb right next door to the adjective that it's modifying. And remember, the adverb is going to come first. Okay? All right, and then we've got his puppet creations have worked very successfully. Now, very is your adverb, and it's modifying another adverb. So we've got how successfully, very successfully. But notice that we've got an adverb here. We have to determine what this adverb is modifying. And if there's not another adverb or adjective next door on the right side, then you've got to go verb hunting. So how did he work? Successfully. So it's modifying the verb. Successfully is actually modifying the verb worked. Now we have adverbs versus adjectives. Now people sometimes confuse these two. It helps to look carefully at the verb. So let's look right here. Now notice we've got Marvin was careful around the kitchen. Now remember that linking verb that we talked about earlier. Linking verbs are going to be followed by adjectives or nouns that are describing the subject or identifying the subject. So I know that careful in this case is an adjective. It's right after a linking verb. If we look at the next example, Marvin moved carefully around the kitchen. We've got an action verb, and we've got carefully, and I don't have another adjective or adverb over here, so I know carefully is modifying my verb. So how did he move? He moved carefully. Then we have adverbs that compare. When you use the comparative form of an adverb to compare two actions, you are looking for two nouns in a sentence that are being compared with each other. But you have to, in this case, you always have to use the ER. Now, if you're comparing more than two actions, then you are you're using EST. So let's take a look. Donna runs faster than Ricky. We've got two people, and we've got two actions of two people. So we're using ER. She's not running the fastest than Ricky. She's running faster than Ricky. So we're comparing two things. Now the superlative is EST. So Donna runs fast, the fastest of all. Now all means more than one or two people. So you've got a group possibly. So you have to use EST. She's running the fastest of all. Now when adverbs that end in ly or they have more than one syllable, That's when we don't put ER or EST at the end. You have to put more or most in the beginning. Okay, so let's look at an example. We've got my sandals fit more comfortably than my loafers. So you've got two things that you're comparing, and I wouldn't say my sandals fit comfortably or than my loafers. You just can't do that. So you are removing the ER from the end, and you're putting more in the place of that. And the same with this next example. That is the most brightly colored butterfly. You wouldn't say that is the brightliest colored butterfly. You have to put the most. Of all butterflies, we would use most, putting most in front of brightly. Now the last section is over double negatives. Now negatives say no in a sentence. So the word not is a negative word. Not often appears in its short and firm in a contraction in apostrophe T. Now, affirmative words say yes in a sentence. So some negative and affirmative words are right here so that you can become familiar with. So we've got negative. It would be not, never, nothing, none. And affirmative, ever, always, something, any, one, all, and some. It would be a good idea to become familiar with these. So when you have two negatives used in one sentence, it makes a double negative, and you want to avoid that in writing and speaking. So in order to correct a double negative, you have to remove one of the negatives and replace it with an affirmative, okay? So you wouldn't say, I don't have nothing to read. So you've got a double negative here. So the correct way would be, I would say, I have nothing to read. I removed don't. Or you could say, I don't have anything to read, so I replaced nothing with anything.